All right, so your second set of notes that you'll be taking is part of the carbon cycle. Okay, so with the carbon cycle, it's going to be a little bit different than that of the nitrogen cycle. With this one, it's going to be two different cycles that we'll be talking about in a sense. Okay, so just like the nitrogen cycle, we start off with your atmospheric CO2. Okay, so that atmospheric CO2 is just kind of building up, and one of the ways that CO2 is something that's easily available and could be used right on the spot by producers, right? So producers use what's known as photosynthesis. So they'll use that CO2 to make sugars, to make their glucose, right? So producers are then eaten by consumers. And at this point, consumers, as they do respiration, they release that carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. Okay. Once consumers die, they are decomposed by decomposers. And some of those nutrients go back into the producer. So it just kind of continues the cycle all on its own. So we have CO2 being uptaken by the producers by the process of photosynthesis. As producers keep on doing this, consumers will come in, eat those producers, and they'll reintroduce that carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere by respiration. Okay. Of course, you have the decomposers that will break down any organic matter within the consumers and reintroduce that into the producers. As you can see, carbon can easily be manipulated and moved through the system rather easily. All right, from carbon dioxide to sugar, and then from sugar back to carbon dioxide. Okay. On top of that, carbon dioxide has another ability to where not only can it be taken up by the producers by photosynthesis, but it can easily be dissolved into an aquatic ecosystem. Okay, so that's my aquatic ecosystem. And this is something that is interchangeable. CO2 can leave and enter and dissolve with that water at will. Okay. So now that we have our dissolved CO2, and I misspelled dissolved, sorry about that. My dissolved CO2, my aquatic producers are able to take those in, kind of like my algae, seaweed. Okay. They are, of course, eaten by consumers. Just like land consumers, consumers do respiration and reintroduce that CO2 back into the system. Okay. So it's the same process, photosynthesis, respiration. So as consumers die, two things can happen with these. So you have what's known as decomposers come in. And then, of course, it just continues the cycle. Okay. Now, two things can happen with this dissolved CO2. One way in those aquatic ecosystems. So one of the things that could happen is it could be converted into the sugar. So then carbon is then being passed on to the consumers as sugar. And then once the consumers consume, they then breathe out that carbon dioxide. Right? So that carbon is easily exchanged within that. But not all dissolved CO2 within the aquatic ecosystems is converted into sugars and passed along so easily. Sometimes that dissolved CO2 goes through what's known as sedimentation. Okay, it's known as sedimentation. And that is basically the formation of sedimentary rocks. Okay. So what happens here is that the carbon dioxide will mix in with that calcium and start forming kind of a rock layer. Okay, so it's the formation of a rock layer.
Can you just plant in here?
Yes.
I just need it under the light. I'll get it tomorrow morning.
Okay.